He sat across from me in silence, a strong man. Once. He had that look in his eyes, not fear exactly, but something quieter, like a question he hadn't yet found words for. His hands rested gently in his lap. I could see the veins, the years etched into his skin, the kind of hands that once built things, held babies, maybe clenched in frustration when no one was watching. He finally said, "Doc, am I doing something wrong? I mean, this part of me, it's still there, but I don't know if I'm helping myself or hurting something I don't fully understand anymore." It wasn't about shame. It was about not wanting to be invisible, not even to himself. You see, when a man crosses into his 70s, there's a quiet shift that no one really prepares him for. His body still remembers the rhythm of youth, but the responses are slower. The needs feel different. And the ways he seeks comfort, those become more personal than ever before. I'm Dr. Thomas Leighton. Over the past 40 years, I've listened to retired bricklayers, war veterans, school teachers, men whose shoulders once carried families and factories. Now they carry memories, regrets, and often questions they're too proud to ask out loud. And today's conversation is one of those questions. Masturbation. Something natural, something human, but also something that can quietly become confusing, even harmful, when it's not met with understanding. Most men don't realize the body's needs change. The rules, so to speak, evolve. What once felt energizing can start to feel draining. What once gave peace might now leave a man feeling empty or even in pain. Not because anything is wrong with him, but because he's never been told how to care for his sexual self after the age of 70. If this message speaks to you, type 1. If you're not sure yet, type 0. Either way, thank you for listening. Let's begin. In our younger years, everything feels like it needs to be faster, harder, more intense. We think of intimacy as something we conquer, not something we inhabit. But past 70, the body invites you to slow down. And if you don't, well, it'll let you know. Many older men continue to use the same methods, same pressure, same pacing they did when they were 25, and they wonder why, afterward, their heart races too fast, or why they feel dizzy, or why their legs cramp up when it's over. This isn't weakness. This is biology saying, I need something different now. When you climax, your pelvic floor muscles the deep ones that surround your prostate and bladder contract with great force. That's normal. But if you're forcing things, rushing, or tensing up unnecessarily, those muscles can become inflamed, fatigued, even strained over time. And here's something few men are told. That strain can lead to real consequences. Trouble urinating, pressure in the groin, a discomfort you can't quite name. You're not failing. You're just pushing an engine that was built for a different road now. I once had a patient who described it like this. It's like I'm driving a classic car, doc, but I keep trying to race it like a sports car, and it's starting to rattle. That's a wise man. The solution isn't to stop driving. It's to listen to the engine. Use a lighter foot, a softer grip, gentle touch, relaxed breathing. Giving yourself the time and space to actually feel, that's the new path forward. You're not less of a man because you slow down. You're wiser for it. You're honoring what your body can do, not mourning what it used to do. And when you start treating this private act with reverence instead of habit, it becomes something more, something meaningful again. But physical pacing is just the beginning. There's another layer that many men never examine, one that affects not the body, but the brain. Let's talk about it. In the last 20 years, pornography has changed dramatically. What once came in faded magazines now floods our phones fast, loud, high def, endless. It's overwhelming for anyone, but especially for an older brain that's wired a little differently now. When you're in your 70s, your brain processes dopamine, the chemical tied to pleasure, in a more sensitive, less elastic way. That means the more intense stimulation you give it, the more it adapts, the more it demands, until one day, what used to feel exciting suddenly feels flat. That's not just about sex. That's about life. Some of the men I've counseled began noticing it first in the bedroom. They couldn't respond the way they used to. But soon, It spread. They lost interest in small joys. Food tasted dull. Conversations lost their spark. One man told me, "Even my grandkids' laugh didn't make me feel the way it used to." And when we traced it back, it wasn't depression. It was dopamine burnout. The culprit? Overuse of fast-paced pornography. Not because of moral failure, but because their brains, at this age, simply weren't built for that kind of constant intensity. That doesn't mean you have to cut off all stimulation. It means you choose it with care. Some men find erotic literature or soft visual art helps them reconnect with imagination. Others discover that memory and fantasy-old love, tender moments, become more emotionally satisfying than anything on a screen. You see, it's not just about arousal. It's about depth. Porn designed for young viewers often centers on extremes, extreme bodies, extreme acts, extreme speed. But your body isn't in that world anymore, and your needs aren't either. When you try to match yourself to what's on that screen, you end up feeling like something is broken. But the truth is, the mismatch isn't in you. It's in the content. It was never meant for someone like you, someone wise, seasoned, honest. Choosing what you feed your eyes and your mind is not prudish. It's powerful. And when you reclaim that power, your body often follows. Now, we've talked about strain. We've talked about overstimulation. But there's another organ at the center of this conversation, one that most men forget until it starts causing problems. Let's go there now. The prostate. It's a small gland, about the size of a walnut. Easy to forget when it's healthy, impossible to ignore when it's not. As we age, this part of the body quietly begins to change. And by the time most men reach their 70s, the prostate is no longer the silent partner it once was. It grows, that's normal. It tightens. It gets a little more sensitive. That sensitivity means we have to handle ourselves with more care. Now, I've heard some men say, "Doc, I thought masturbation was good for the prostate." And in many cases, that's true. Regular release can help circulate fluid, reduce stagnation, and even provide some protective benefits. But, and this is important, only when done gently, thoughtfully. Too much pressure, or worse, holding back ejaculation to train the body, can actually lead to more harm than good. It's a bit like trying to stretch a muscle by clenching it. That's not how healing works. Some men, without realizing it, begin to feel soreness down there, a heaviness in the pelvic area, even burning or sharp pain. And they don't connect the dots. They think, maybe I pulled something, or it'll go away. But sometimes it doesn't. I once spoke with a man late 70s who'd been experiencing persistent pressure and burning after climax. He was convinced it was just age catching up with him. But what we found was inflammation from years of forceful, rushed masturbation. His prostate had been quietly irritated for months. What helped him wasn't medication. It was education. He learned to touch differently. He allowed arousal to build instead of rushing it. He learned to exhale, not brace. And most of all, he stopped seeing climax as a goal and started treating the whole experience as a journey. When you do that, the body responds differently. It softens. And, just as important, if you notice changes blood in semen, cloudy fluid, interrupted flow, don't ignore those signs. They're not always serious, but they're always worth checking. Prostate health isn't just about preventing disease. It's about preserving quality of life, comfort, sleep, peace. But we're not just physical beings. And in this stage of life, the emotional shadows start to stretch a little longer. Let's talk about that too. There's a moment in the evening, you might know it, when the house gets too quiet. No music, no voices, just the hum of the refrigerator and the weight of time. In those moments, many older men turn to something familiar, something that once gave relief. Masturbation becomes not a choice, but a default. Not because the body is craving it, but because the heart is aching. Loneliness is one of the most underdiagnosed conditions in older men. And I don't mean the kind that comes from being physically alone. I mean the kind that whispers in your ear that no one truly sees you anymore. That kind of loneliness doesn't just sit in the chest. It spreads to everything: your sleep, your digestion, your drive. And for some, it spreads into their most private moments. The danger isn't in the act itself. It's in the motive behind it. When you're using release to soothe an emotion you won't name, it becomes a form of emotional avoidance. And avoidance, over time, robs you of depth. I had a patient once, a widower, beautiful man, kind eyes. He told me, "I don't even know why I do it anymore. It's not about pleasure, it's just something to fill the time." And I told him gently, "Then maybe it's time to find something that fills your heart again." Sometimes the best medicine for the body is not a pill. It's a phone call, a shared laugh, an afternoon in the sun with a good book, a walk where you see your own breath and remember that you're alive. When masturbation becomes a substitute for connection, it loses its healing power. But when it's paired with wholeness, when it's one part of a full, present life, it can still be deeply affirming. So ask yourself, next time you feel the urge, pause, check in. Is this about comfort, or is it about escape? And if it's escape, what are you trying not to feel? That one question can change everything. Now, there's one more layer to this conversation, one that men almost never talk about, even with their doctor. Performance. It's a heavy word. Most men associate it with the ability to get and maintain an erection quickly, strongly, without help. And when that changes, which it inevitably does with age, it can feel like failure. But it's not. It's simply the body entering a new phase, a wiser one. Unfortunately, many older men begin to treat masturbation like a test. They watch themselves too closely. Am I hard enough? Why is this taking so long? Is something wrong with me? And the more they watch, the harder it becomes to relax. This is called performance anxiety. And it's not just psychological, it has a direct physical impact. When the brain senses stress, it releases cortisol. Cortisol narrows blood vessels, stiffens muscles, and short-circuits arousal. The harder you try, the less the body responds. And over time, this becomes a loop. Anxiety leads to dysfunction. Dysfunction fuels more anxiety. Round and round it goes, until what was once a joyful part of life becomes something a man dreads. You don't deserve that. You deserve peace, comfort, presency. Erections change. That's just the truth. But satisfaction doesn't have to. When you stop measuring yourself, when you stop performing and start experiencing, you begin to reclaim what was never lost, just buried under years of expectation. If your body responds differently, that doesn't make you broken. It makes you human. And if you notice persistent changes that concern you, seek help. Quietly, confidently, without shame. There are safe treatments, gentle therapies, supportive conversations that can bring relief. The key is to stop hiding from your own truth. Because hiding is not strength. Hiding is fear. And I promise you, there's still light to be found in this part of your life, if only you'll let yourself look for it. If you're finding this helpful, or you're just starting to think differently about your health after 60, consider hitting the subscribe button. That way, you won't miss future insights made just for men like you. Now, we've walked through the 5 most common mistakes older men make with masturbation. But more important than mistakes is what comes next. What do you do with this awareness? Let's talk about that now. There comes a point in a man's life, usually quiet, often unnoticed, when the question shifts from "can I" to "should I" and "how." That shift is where real wisdom begins. Sexual wisdom, after 70, isn't about fixing anything. It's about honoring something. Honoring the vessel that's carried you through heartbreak and triumph, hard work and soft moments. The body that may be slower now, but still responds to touch, memory, and love, if you let it. Masturbation, at this stage, is not about escaping boredom or testing virility. It's about care. You might notice, when you slow down, how different things feel. The warmth of your own hand, the texture of your breath, the way your chest rises and falls when you give yourself permission to be present instead of pushing for a result. Some men have told me that when they stopped watching the clock, stopped chasing the goal, they began to feel again, not just in the body, but in the spirit. And sometimes, that feeling, it brings tears, not because of sorrow, but because something soft and buried gets touched to tenderness that maybe no one's spoken to in decades. That's not weakness. That's healing. You're not just a body, you're a story. And this part of your life, the final chapters, deserve to be written with the same care and courage you gave your early ones. So what now? You don't need a strict set of rules. You need a mindset. One of kindness. If your body feels tense, listen. If your thoughts are racing, pause. If your heart is aching, ask yourself what it truly wants, not just what will numb it. This is not about abstinence, and it's certainly not about shame. It's about alignment with your values, with your body, with your age. Start by changing one small thing. Maybe tonight, you dim the lights instead of staring at a screen. Maybe you take a few deep breaths before touching yourself, not to calm down, but to arrive, to really be there. Maybe you stop midway, not because something's wrong, but because it felt right to rest. And maybe that moment becomes a quiet ritual, one that leaves you feeling steadier, not lonelier. You see, the goal isn't arousal, it's peace, not climax, but connection. The men who understand this, even just a little, start to move differently through their days. They're not chasing their youth, they're living their age, fully. That shift changes everything. And for those who are still struggling with what they've lost, whether it's performance, drive, or just familiarity with their own body, I want to remind you of something gentle and true. Your worth was never tied to your erection. Your value has nothing to do with speed, stamina, or frequency. If you can hold yourself gently and feel something good, honest, human, that's still intimacy, and it still matters. One man told me recently, "I'm not sure I even want to climax every time anymore. Sometimes just touching myself kindly feels like enough." That's the kind of knowing that takes a lifetime to arrive at. You don't owe anyone an explanation for how your body works now, not even yourself. But you do owe yourself respect. Respect for the changes, the aches, the surprises. Respect for the body that still wakes up, breathes, aches for meaning, and seeks warmth in quiet places. So if you find yourself alone one evening feeling that old familiar tension between need and uncertainty, I invite you to see it differently. Not as a burden, not as proof that something's broken, but as a whisper from your own soul. Asking for kindness, asking to be seen. That kind of intimacy is not measured in minutes or motion. It's measured in attention. So give it, even if it feels awkward at first. Even if you're not sure how to begin. Your hands still know the way if your heart leads them. And if you need help, real help, there's no shame in reaching out. A good doctor, a kind counselor, a friend who listens. These things exist, and they exist for you. Because you're not done growing. Not yet. This part of life holds gifts, too. Not in the form of passion as you once knew it, but in the form of presence, quiet, joy, self-trust. You are not alone in this. And if this message touched you, perhaps share it quietly, as it was shared with you. Let it be a candle in someone else's darkened room. Let it remind another man that he's still allowed to feel, still allowed to care, still allowed to learn. I'd love to hear from you, if you're willing. Leave a comment with one thing you're taking from this, or just type 1 if something in this message felt true for you. If it didn't, type 0, so I know how to do better next time. And if you'd like to walk this path together, consider subscribing. I'll be right here week by week helping you care for yourself in all the ways that matter most. Thank you for watching. Thank you for still believing that your life, your body, your story is worth tending to.